While looking through the video rental store one day, I came upon a movie called Boa vs. Python, a giant monster disaster movie. I had to see that. But shortly after, I found out that it was only part of a series of movies, starting with Python. There was Python in 2000, Boa in 2001, Python 2 from 2002, and finally Boa vs. Python in 2004. Wow, that is a lot of shitty snake movies. Now, Anaconda had only come out a few years earlier, so it's clear Python was just trying to ride the wave of killer snake movies. And did you know that there was also 4 Anaconda movies? I didn't even like the first one, and they went ahead and made 4 of them. The Anaconda series had some of the worst CGI that I've seen in any movie series. And I think I know why there's been so many killer snake movies. Because these days, everything is CGI, and a snake is an easy thing to animate. Back in the old days, seeing an animated snake was a more impressive sight. Like in Jason and the Argonauts, when he fights the multi-headed Hydra. Each neck of the Hydra is like a snake. But that was stop motion, and you just know that that wasn't easy to accomplish. There was also the snakes on top of the Medusa's head in Clash of the Titans, and the giant snake-like plesiosaur in King Kong, which was a remarkable stop-motion animation feat. But now, with computers, making a tube shape in a 3D program is probably one of the easier things that you can do. Because you don't have to worry about if the character has weight or if the walk cycle is right. It's a snake, so none of that applies. Also, I just want to say, I know that doing CGI animation isn't easy work. I'm not saying that it is. A lot of hard work goes into doing CGI special effects. I'm just saying that a snake in particular seems like a simpler thing to animate than, say, a gorilla, because a snake has no limbs. And they're choosing to do a lot of snake movies because they can get it done faster. The first film in the series, Python, was a made-for-TV monster movie that starts off with the military who are escorting a snake from one area to another when a lightning storm brings down the plane. The snake escapes and then begins preying upon the local inhabitants. Is this where they got the idea to do snakes on a plane?
I have had it with these motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking plane!
And don't you think they'd bother to check the weather forecast before flying with a dangerous giant snake on the plane? Well, the movie's got quite a cast. First, there's the Python itself, which is supposedly voiced by Frank Welker, who of course did Megatron, Stripe from Gremlins, and countless other characters, though the snake doesn't talk or anything. I guess he just made the hissing noises. That's a good way to make a living. Hiss into a microphone a couple times and get a paycheck in the mail. There's William Zabka, the same actor that played Johnny in The Karate Kid. He does a decent job here playing the police officer. Robert Englund, Freddy Krueger, plays a scientist that studies snakes. He's also pretty good. There's Jenny McCarthy, who I remember from that stupid MTV dating show, Singled Out. She doesn't bring anything interesting, and I was happy when the snake decapitated her with its tail. And then there's Will Wheaton, most known for playing Wesley Crusher on Star Trek The Next Generation. He's got his hair dyed a different color here, probably trying to change his look around so that he's less typecast as Wesley.
Are you gonna close that deal?
Oh yeah.
Are you gonna close that deal? Hell yeah!
Shut up, Wesley.
There's also a real estate guy who's a funny character. He freaks out on a kid for kicking his car, and he just goes way overboard.
You know what I'm... Hey! Hey! You scratch it, I'll hang your balls like fuzzy dice from my mirror! You got that, Billy? You got it? You piece of monkey shit!
And then later he finds his beloved car torn to shreds.
No!
He thinks it's the same kid that was kicking his car earlier, so he grabs a sword off the wall and tries to hunt him down.
Billy! You little shit!
Of course we know that it's really the snake that destroyed his car, but what was he gonna do with that sword? Was he actually gonna hack the kid into little pieces? What's wrong with this fucking psychopath? You call the cops, you don't go on a samurai sword rampage. And there's also a cop that's named Lewis, and he's a giant douchebag. He acts like an ass the whole movie, so you figure the snake's gonna get him the worst. But when he finally dies, they just show some blood in his car like it already happened. I was looking forward to watch him get his head ripped off or something. The movie totally failed to deliver on this part. If you're gonna spend all that time setting up some douchebag, he needs to die horribly. Come on. To sum up Python, the CGI is pretty bad, but the acting is decent for this kind of movie, and it kept me entertained throughout. And there's also a good use of suspense. It would have been better if they would have ended it right away when the snake dies, though. The last 2 minutes of resolution dragged the excitement out of it. And let's also briefly talk about Boa from 2001, otherwise known as New Alcatraz. Why is it called that? Because in this movie there's a prison in Antarctica that they call New Alcatraz. Actually, New Alcatraz is the real title of the movie. But some copies, like the one I have, are just called Boa, and I don't know why there's two titles. But anyway, it's Antarctica, so this time the snake is frozen under the ice. That's only explained through narrative, however. You don't actually see it under the ice. And no explanation is even given how it could have survived that long. So the people in charge need somebody to take care of this situation with the snake, so they bring in Dr. Robert Trenton, played by Dean Cain, and he's best known for playing Superman in Lois and Clark. So, like I said, this takes place in Antarctica, right? Well, it looks like the filmmakers could use a spelling lesson, because they spelled Antarctica A-N-T-A-R-T-I-C-A. They forgot the C between the R and the T. Then there's the scene with the warden who runs this icy prison. During one part, he's talking to somebody through the glass, but if you look closely, his lips continue moving after he's done talking.
Instituted by a 35-nation committee.
Essentially, they just spend the whole movie running away from the snake inside of the prison. All the guards die, and they have to get help from the prisoners to escape. When they finally do get out, they make it to a getaway plane, and I bet you can't guess what happens. Yep, the snake is on the plane again. How original. There's really not that much to say about Boa. It's just really dull. I'd say skip it. Well, next time I'm going to look at the other two films in the Python series, so I'll see you next week for part 2.
Get away from the door!
Dude, you got me out of bed for a snake?
Shut up, Wesley.